Hello everyone. You all might have gone through my previous session where I've explained about constructor, its uses, and what are the benefit of it. So, this session I will explain a little bit about static keyword, and if possible, we'll go through try, catch, or the exceptions. So, let me share my screen. Yeah, so my screen is visible to you all. This is what program we did yesterday, right? This is the program what we did yesterday. So, see, I will show you something here. If I go here. In this public class A, we will use the same class. In this public class A, I will write a static. You know what is static methods, right? Static methods can be invoked using the class name dot method name. No new operator or no object or no instantiation of the class is required. So similarly, you have something called static block. Like this, you can define a static block. So let's say I'll just print a SYS here. See how it happens when it get executed, right? So inside static. Now let's go to main class, and in main class we will create an object of a class where we have the static block. So I'm running it, this program. You see main class inside static and A. What is that A? A is something which you are printing inside the constructor, right? A is something which you are printing inside the constructor. So execution, main class execution, and then inside static, then class A. Right? This is what we are doing. So that means whenever you create an object of a class, you invoke the constructor. Right? When you write new operator, constructor get invoked by default. That is how by default you create an object of a class. Right? That is how the object of class is getting created. So when you are creating an object of a class, if you have any static block in that class, that will first get executed, then it will invoke the constructor. That is what the hierarchy, that is what the process. So if you have any static block inside the class, they will get executed first before creating an object. So see here you can see inside static and then so what is the use of static block in a class? The use of static block in a class is the use of static block in a class is that uh, sometime before creating the class object or before creating an object of a class, we need to initialize some parameter. And to initialize that parameter, we need to always have it inside the static block. Let's say some kind of logging mechanism we want to initialize. You know what is logging? We will discuss later. But let me tell some kind of logging mechanism you want to initialize. You can have it inside the static block. It will initialize logging mechanism inside the static block, and then it will go on. You know, create an object of class, and accordingly it will proceed. This is how the static block works. A static method, right? So let me show you here something. One more public static void method, right? I created a method here. It's a static method, right? The above one is inside static block, below one is inside static method. Let me go to the main method. Now if I create object, see what will happen. See, you see what happened. Now what I will do, I'll comment out this line number 21. I'll go to line number 22. I will use this class a dot get, sorry, method, right? A dot method. This method is a static method. So let me run what happens here. See, main class execution, inside static block, inside static method. We're able to observe it, right? So whenever we call a static method, or we create an object and use that object to call a, when you create an object or you call a static method, the static block will always will be called. So this is what the static block, and you all have seen. So if you want, I can show you one more thing by doing debug, right? By using debug, this is, you always can use yourself debug. Let me do this is for you for the one more time. See here, I'll go debug as Java application. I've given debug point in 22. Started, right? The program came and stay, and here debug hash debug point is system.out.println where it got stuck, right? So now let's go to the next step over. So I did F6 step over. Now what I will do? I will do F5. Let us step into. So I did F5. See, it went to system.out.println inside static method. Next I will do again F6 step over. It came out. So it didn't show us like when it went to this thing. So what I will do, I will do again run as Java application or debugger, sorry, debugger Java application. Here in F6 itself, I will put F5 step into. So it will take me to print ln method. Fine, no issue. I will just do step over and come out. Now again I will do F5. See, it is always showing in debug. It is going to the void method. Before that only, it already executed the static block. It's not going there. So internally JVM is taking care of, whenever the class will get loaded, it will execute whatever the static block you have inside the class. So when does a class got when does a class will get loaded into JVM? The class will get loaded into JVM when you create an object of that class, or you use class dot static method name, right? Or you use class dot static method name. That time the class will get loaded and it will execute that method from the class. At particular that time, the static block also will get executed. So let's do step over again and come out of that method and finish this execution. This is what your this is what your static block and static method. So here what I will do, I will explain you something about try catch now, and let's see. Now what happens? What is a try catch block, right? What is try catch block? What is exception? What is throwable? All this, if you want, you need to understand what all this, right? So let's say here I'll comment this method inside this method, my main method. I will use this same class, main class, to show you try block, try, catch, and exception, all these things. So let's say I'm taking int x equal to 0, right? I will take int y equal to something I will take. Let's say y equal to, I will take 100, right? Then I will say int z equal to y divided by x. Then I will do sys system.out.println result z equal to, right here, the value of z. This is how I'm trying to print. So what will happen? Let's see. exception happened, right? Main class execution first system dot out dot println got printed. Now here we got main class execution. Exception in thread main. Java lang arithmetic exception divide by zero, right? So you got an exception in the here in this particular class, right? So this is actually intentionally I created an exception. Intentionally I created an exception, and this exception are basically runtime exception. So now if I talk about exception in Java you have two type of exception. One is compile time exception, one is runtime exception. Compile time exception are the exception which will occur during compilation of the program, while you are compiling the program. And runtime exception are the exception which will happen during the execution of the program. When I'm executing, it will throw exception, like this arithmetic exception. Because your interpreter or compiler will doesn't know what is the value of y and what is the value of x, right? They know yes a variable x and there is a variable y, but you have not instructed your JVM to check the value. Your JVM automatically cannot check the value of x and y, so the result will be arithmetic exception divided by zero error, right? If I change this z x by y, I will not get any error, right? If I make it x by y, see there is no error. See, so see handling compile time exception is easy because when you're trying to handle compile time exception, when you're trying to handle compile time exception, you know how the compiler is going to do or behave. But handling runtime exception is a little bit difficult, right? Because you have compiled the code and you are running it in JVM. When this exception will throw, you don't know. Similarly here. So the reason here why I'm telling this runtime exception, see while writing the code, you should write your code in such a way that runtime exception will not happen. Right? So to handle this exception, we always use try and catch. You know, it is always good to handle compile time exception using try catch, and some runtime exception can be handled without using try catch. So for example, this exception, right? So this arithmetic exception, how we can handle this without using try and catch, right? So handling this exception is first I will define int z equal to 0. That is the result I'm going to store. Now here I will see if is a I have not explained you or I have not told you what is if, but now while I'm explaining it, you should learn what is if now. See if is a statement where it is a conditional statement. If you talk about conditional statement, we have if else, and switch. These are the conditional statements. So while going through this try catch, I will also explain this conditional statement to you. So if I will do if x equal to 0, x equal to 0, right? If x equal to 0, then what you do? You print undefined value. And if x equal to 0, you print output is infinity, right? Infinity. If x equal to not 0, then what you can do? So I will just write here z equal to you know y divided by x. Done. Then we will print z, not y, x divided by z, x divided by yes, y divided by x. I'm confused. Yeah. So this is how it, right? So I will now run it. See what happens. This is only if condition. Now this is if condition statement. See main class execution infinity. You got infinity, right? 29 line number, it printed infinity. That means x equal to 0, it went inside the if condition and started printing infinity. Right? But we are not able to handle the exception. So now what I will do, I'll put a else here. I'll put a else here. So if I run it, what will happen? Just see. Infinitive, result z equal to 0, right? Result z equal to 0. Infinitive, infinity, result z equal to 0. Now, why z equal to 0? Because initially I have defined z equal to 0. Now I don't want to print this z equal to 0 because I've already printed, z is infinity or undefined, right? I've already printed z equal to infinity or undefined, right? Divide by 0, right? Something I printed. So what I should do now? This statement is it should come under else. Then only we'll get the right output. So when we're defining this if else, you can block it like this. You can create a blocking. That is called data encapsulation or code encapsulation, right? You are encapsulating code inside a bracket. So inside this bracket, whatever you write, whatever you want to write in this condition of true. When this condition is true, x equal to 0, it will go inside the if. When this condition is false, that is x equal to 0 is false, then it will go inside else. So like this, you define it, right? Like this, you define. So now in else you have this line in this. Now you let us print it. Z is infinitive, right? Z is already infinitive. So don't worry about this green, red, all these colors, whatever coming on the screen. This color comes when we, do a code check. There is something tool we use to check the code. You know how efficient is code. That time it will come these colors, but I don't know why it is coming now. Let's need to forget about that. Forget about that. There is a tool called find work. There is a tool called Sonar. There are so many plugin tools where we do code checking. When you run that code, it will show some piece of code is very good, some piece of code you need to edit. It will show that way. So let's not talk about that. Here we come to if x equal to 0. So now let me change this condition. If I'm making if x equal to not 0, where it will go? If you know if x equal to not 0, it is true, then it will go inside if block. If x is not equal to 0 is false, then it will go else block. Let me run it. This is how it looks. Why it came arithmetic exception? Because it came to this line number 32. Because I made reverse this condition, not equal to 0. Now I will make it equal to 0. This is the right way to handle your runtime exception. This arithmetic long time exception is some arithmetic or some runtime exception can be handled the way you code. If you code it efficiently and in a better way, runtime exception can be easily handled the way we have handled this exception divided by 0. Right? So see now the exception will not come. Right? Now what I will do here, I will put 100 and I will run. X is 100, Y is 100. Right? So let's run it. What you will observe now. See, result Z equal to 1, right? If I put it 200, result Z is 0, right? Y is 100 by 200. It should not be 0, right? It should be something 0.5 or something, right? It is showing 0 because we are taking integer type, data type. Now I will make all of them as double because double will be able to hold decimals. Data type I have not explained. I think one session I will explain that. Say z equal to 0.5, right? So you should be very careful whenever you are using data type. Do you need decimal value or not? If you need decimal value, then you have to go with float or double. Now, if I make it 200, what will happen? The result will be same again. If I make it as 300, 1.5, right? So you might have got how to handle runtime exception, right? Some runtime exception can be handled using if condition statements and some other way of writing program. You can easily handle some runtime exceptions. So before going into in detail about exception, I will just show you. See, I will just show you what is that Java exception hierarchy. So you can Google from search it. Throwable class is the parent class. Okay, throwable class is the parent class of all exception, and object class is the parent class of all classes in Java. What happened? It is so slow. Images. Yes, I think this is one which is given so much of classes. Let's see this one. Okay. So we came here and just click this image. If it is getting maximized, it is good for us. See, if you see this image, object is always the superclass of all other classes in Java. By default, all other classes, if it is not extending anything, this object class will be inherited. Now, what is the importance of object class? Why it is getting inherited? We will discuss in some other session, maybe next session. But this session we will discuss about the exception. So, exception, exception, uh, the parent class of all exception and error is throwable class. You can see by this diagram, right? Exception, you have runtime exception, and then IO exception, SQL exception, AWT exception, right? So just now I have explained to how to handle one type of runtime exception, right? How to handle one time of runtime exception, that is arithmetic exception. I I will show you this compile time exception, like these are, IO exception is a compile time exception, SQL exception. All this is compile time file not found, EOF exception, interrupt IO exception, file not found exception. All these I will show it in my this in this session. You will see it all. Right. So let's go back to the Eclipse. Yeah, we did something, right? You have a class A, B, C, D, all these classes are there, right? So now A class is the parent class, right? B class is the child class. B class is the child of B again. C is child of D. So all these classes are sequentially attached. I'll show you one more exception. A equal to new C. C is the child class of B and B is the child class of A. That means C is indirectly child class of A, or A is indirectly superclass of C. That's why we can create an object of C using a class variable of A, of type A, right? So I'm able to create it. Now what I will do? Now I will do like this. B equal to A. Is it possible or not? Is it possible or not? See, here it's showing some error. Type mismatch cannot convert from A to B. Right? Type mismatch cannot convert from A to B because A is the parent class. So to downcast, we have to need to do like this. Now it is convert it to B, right? So similarly, if I remove this, it will show again. Now what I will do D equal to A, right? D is the child class of B again. Child class of B, child class of C. So see what it's saying, multiple marker this time. Tab mismatch connect convert from A to D. The value of the local variable is not used. That is a warning. The value of local variable is not used. Forget about that warning. Now, can I downcast it to D? Let's see. See, I have downcasted it to D. But what is D? D is again child class of C. So some method in D may not be available in class C, right? So to know if I can instantiate it properly, or if I can, if I can uh, handle it properly, always you can check what type of instance it is, and then later you can then later you can use it. There is something called instance of, right? A keyword in Java. So what we do, it also you need to do like this. If A is instance of, if A is instance of B, right? If A is instance of D, then what is this? Then it is D equal to A, right? So what I will do, I'll just put a SOP here, instance of C. This is what I did. Now since we created a class of C, again I will do else. Okay. If this is another conditional statement. To show this conditional statement and how to handle a runtime exception product called class cast exception, I am showing you that. No? Here I will give again a copy this instance of, right, B. Sorry, C. Here we are going to check for C, right? Again here I will put this thing sys system.println instance of C. Here I will do C equal to A. We have to downcast it because it is always in the form of parent class C. So I will run this program now. I will just comment out, let it be there set of part. So see, let me run it. C instance of C. Where we went, instance of C. Forget about this ABC. These are coming because we have written it ABC inside the constructor of the A class, B class, C class in previous session. Since I'm creating an object of C, so it will show ABC. If I create instance of D, it will show ABCD. So forget why this ABC is coming. You got it now. So let's not look into that. The major part is here. Now where it came? It came instance of C, right? So instance of C, it came inside the instance of C and it downcasted that object to C type class or C data type or into C class, right? So this is how the instance of can be used to handle runtime exception, class cast exception. So let's now talk about you know compile time exception. To talk about compile time exception, we have to go through some examples, right? We have to go through some examples of compile time. Then we will be able to use it. So if you see out compile time exception here, you see IO exception is a compile time exception. I can give one example of IO exception. So let's see if I can. I have, in a long time I have not written any code for IO exception. If I can read it, if I can write a code and show you. The only problem is the thing here is the concept. You can do it very easily. So let me comment out all this whatever we have written here now. The handling of runtime exception and if else condition, if else if condition, and only if condition. So I'm starting from line number 46. See, file file equal to new file, right? So file class we have to import. C colon temp. I will give a path, a temp folder path, and from temp folder path we will leave a.txt, a file, right? We will read a file. So I have given this. See, this is what how you create an object of a file class. If you put it here, the error, it is saying invalid escape sequence. Okay, fine. This is an invalid escape sequence. So let's reverse this. What is escape sequence? I will talk about that later. Let me first rectify it. So you see, this is how a file is created. And if you go to this, this is just a warning. Local variable is never used. So don't worry about that warning. Now we'll go file import string, right? FIS equal to new file input stream. I'll pass the file there. See, it is done, right? Now let's see what it is showing. Multiple marker at this line. What it is showing? Unhandled exception type file not found exception. It is showing file not found exception, right? This is compile time exception. During compilation only, you will be able to see this exception, right? So see why we need to handle this compile time exception, file not found exception. See what happened now in our program we will be writing lots of code. And what happened if you are going and searching for a file in a folder, if that file is not available, your program will end there. It will throw the exception and program will end there, and it will not go further. If you handle this exception, what will happen? Your program will throw this exception and you can catch this exception and you can throw a proper message saying that this is the issue because of which this exception has happened. Either file is not found or something else, right? Or the file name is not proper, something else. So let's put a try catch block. This is how you add your try catch block. File not found exception, right? This is compile time exception. It will come always when you use file input string. So this try block, right? When you see any piece of code that is going to throw exception, you always need to put that piece of code inside try block, and you need to have a catch block which will basically going to handle your exception. Now this exception is handled, right? Let me run it now. See, some exception came now. Why this exception came? Let's go to the console and check it. See, the system the system find the file specified because I have not kept any file in temp folder and I'm just going to read it. So it is throwing the exception, right? It is throwing the exception. I'll comment out this e.print stack trace. I will put it here. A beautiful message, right? Without any exception. File not found. File not found. Let me run it again. File not found, simple message, no error. This is how you can catch an exception and you can put a user defined message to the customer or to the console or wherever you want, right? Let me go for the mm, create a file and put it there, right? A.txt. This is same folder, right? Let's say we have one error.html file here. I'll just copy that file. Or first, let me show you with the a.txt. New text document a.txt, right? And let me add something here. Okay, I've kept the file there. Now I will run it. See, all in main class. File not found is not showing now because file is found. Right? File dot fis dot see read will read this file, right? Create a byte array, create a byte array of 1024 size. I'll pass this byte array here. This what it is showing now. It is giving one more error, right? Just click unhandled exception, type IO exception. Now it is showing, it is saying IO exception. So what I will do, I will add IO exception to that catch. Rather, I will add IO exception to that catch. So what you can do, you can have one more catch here, just below that, you know, same syntax. What is this? Okay, this is how you can write it. So SOS IO exception. Now we will try to print this. Now we will try to print this. See, we are getting this object because we already created. Let me print toString. I want to print the content of that. Okay. I will this for loop also. I will take one more session. Today I'm just showing the exception. Let's see the exception. There are different way to print it. I'm taking the shortest path, simple way. Hmm. Okay, it is printing 83, 97, 116, 112, 197. This is what this is a ASCII of that particular Hmm. See, it print Satya, right? So we are able to get the value from the file and we are able to print it, right? So this is how you have your compile time exception, and always you need to handle the compile time exception. See, I will just print another file. As I said, we have another file called error.html there. So let me do error.html here, right? So let's see what it is printing. You see, it started printing whatever we have in the HTML file. You want to see it? I will show you. Notepad++ is a tool which I use more, frequently. See what you have here: doc type HTML till the HTML, error page, my first page. You see the content here in the console is same, right? So it is reading from that file, temporary folder, right? Whatever the file I have in temporary folder, it is reading from that file. So you people might have understood the compile time exception and the runtime exception, right? IO exception, file not found exception, and the compile time exception. We need to handle this. Without handling this, it won't work. I'll give you one more example, one more thing here. See, IO exception and file not found exception, right? So let's say I will keep this IO exception in top first, and I'll try this exception at the end. What will happen? Is there any issue going to happen? Is it going to show anything? See, it is showing something here, 67, line number. Unreachable catch block. This is another beautiful concept of Java. Listen to me. You see, IO exception is the parent class of file not found exception. So if any exception happens, any exception that is happening, any exception that is happening, uh, file not found exception is happening, and if I have used catch IO exception first, like what I did in this code, and then I'm using file not found exception, IO exception will catch file not found exception, as well as IO exception will catch IO exception, right? So no use of file not found exception below. The parent exception class can catch exception of child class. You getting? Parent exception class can catch exception of child class. Are you getting? So that is how it is. So here, whenever you are defining the exception, and if you want to define the sequence of the exception, it should be always child class exception, then parent class exception. Then only that is the hierarchy you have to maintain. See, no error. I first I tried, I put file not found, then I have no error. This also you can write in another way. This is in latest version of Java. They started using this. I think so. I have to check the syntax. So, hmm. Can please see here. One second. Hold on. Okay. Let me get it from the Google. Not been a long time. Let me get it from the Google. Um, okay. multiple exception. Just let me get it up. I did something wrong in my syntax. Okay, this was not given. It's not given. It's a very old document. Huh? Yes, this is IO exception, X exception, right? This we can catch both these exceptions in single catch block. That is from Java 7 onwards, right? It is coming from Java 7 onwards. We can catch always multiple exceptions, right? That's how it is showing. The syntax was right, but there is some issue in my Eclipse. I don't know what. I did this right syntax, IO exception. You see the syntax IO exception, then a bar, and then a selection from EX. So here also the same thing I did, IO exception. So IO exception, the same thing only I did, but why? Let's go and see. Okay, SQ exception is a different exception. All right, so bar, what is the error it is showing? Let's read it. The exception file not found is already caught by the alternative IO exception. So what it is trying to say, I got it now. What it is trying to say, you can, if you are writing IO exception, you cannot write child exception in that particular thing, but you can write a parallel, a different exception which is not in that same hierarchy. So that is the reason why there he has given a SQL exception error. So we can write a SQL exception here, right? See, this error is gone. Right? This error is gone. So in a single catch block, you can handle multiple exception, and that too, if you have put I exception, you cannot put there any child class exception in that particular catch, but you can put any other exception which is not in the hierarchy of IO exception, right? If you are keeping the parent class of IO exception, then what will happen? If you are keeping the parent class of IO exception, what will happen? So you have to remove IO exception. You have to keep the parent class here. That's how it is. These are few concepts of exception, try catch, right? So you learn this now, the exception, compile time exception, runtime exception, how to handle this exception. You also learned you also learned what is that? Instance of and if else. If condition, only if else condition, if else if condition, and instance of condition. In instance of keyword, right? This is what you have learned now. So now coming back to this exception, what else? Coming back to this exception, what else, right? Coming back to the exception, what else we can talk about exception? There are so many things to talk about exception, right? I'll show you one more thing. There is something called finally, which comes with exception. So after execution of all exception, if you want to execute something, you can write finally block, right? See why this block is required. Why this block is required. First, I will show you why it is required, and then what is the need of this, then we'll unblock it and we'll see the output. See what I will do, I'll put a file name here. Let's say something b.html. That file is not there, right? b.txt, that file is not there, right? So now if I run it, what will happen? You all know by default it will go file not found exception. It will throw file not found exception, right? Let me run it. I have enabled the I have commented the line number 65, which is g.print stack trace. I'll run it now. See, I have run it. Let me little bit. Yeah. So see, file not found exception inside file not found, and then it has printed the exception stack trace. This is called exception stack trace. From this exception stack trace, what you can find, At the below, it is saying main.java 55. Click here. See, it will go to the line number where it has found the exception near to that line number or on that line number. It will show you, right? This file input stream is showing exception file not found. Now, once this program got stopped, I have something here to print. When the program gets successfully, it will print successful, right? Let's say successfully executed. Now I will run it again. Successfully executed, it is trying to print. It is printed also. File not found and successfully executed, right? Because we have a catch block here. Now, what I will do, I will throw, no, not throw. Now, what happened? If you have some piece of code, right, that is FIS, this file input stream. I want to close this input stream because I have read the file. Dot close. I want to close this input stream. What will happen? After exception, it will not go to this below line. I will show you. See, close FIS. If file not found, then successfully executed. Came out of the try catch block and started executing the below line. Right? So it is not able to close the file. Close the file input stream. File input stream is still open. It is not got closed. Right? So we have to close this file input stream. How we can close it file input stream? You need to have a finally block. If any exception happen in the try, it will go to the finally block. And here we will close FIS dot close. It will show error, because FIS is not visible. It will say FIS file input stream is not visible or cannot be resolved. So for that, what we need to do? We need to declare this FIS outside the or global. Right? I declare it global. Right? Similarly, for file also we'll declare it global and use it inside the block. So let me run it. Proceed. There is still some error. What is that? FIS should be visible now. Unhandled exception. Okay. Now when you are doing FIS.close, here also it is throwing an exception because it is a file input stream, right? It will always throw IO exception. So we have to do around with try and cleanse. See IO exception, it has to do because if something goes wrong, it will throw again exception here. See now, see temp.b.txt file not found in that exception is there, but it is inside the finally, right? Now let's say what will happen. I will have one more file FIS, right? I'll have one more FIS here before closing it. Huh? What I will do here, I will put new file bracket b.txt here I will put, right? Here I'll put that. C colon slash tmp plus this, right? And this file name should be capital. Yeah. So I have put one more file. Here I will put a.txt. A.txt is already available, right? So let me run it now. So what happened now? Satya file not found for the b.txt, right? File not found for the b.txt, and then it is saying inside finally successfully executed, and then it is showing this exception b.txt file not found, right? But what it did, it also closed the stream. It also able to see while closing the stream what is happening, right? So the thing here is there are some, some requirement will be there while we are writing real-time program. Some requirement will be there where you need to have finally because you want to execute some kind of statement and close it. Let's say if you talk about SQL, your Java program is talking to Oracle or MySQL, any other kind of database, and you want to close the connection. If any exception goes wrong, you can always go to finally block and close the exception. Like what we did in static, right? In static, what we did in static, whatever initialization is required, we are trying to put there or in a constructor. Similarly, in finally, whatever you want to close the connection if there is an exception, or you want to clean up the code or clean up the things if there is an exception, you can always write in finally block. One more concept here: your try can have multiple catch statement, and your try also can have one catch statement inside that multiple exception. Your try may not have a catch statement also. That real time that is not possible, but there is a concept in Java. Without a catch block, you can have a try, but you need to have finally. If you have finally, then you are you know ready to go. This can be done. But here, what happened was since we are using this FIS, okay, I will do it in a different way. Right? I'll comment all this piece of code rather creating any confusion there. Okay. So here I will write a try. I'll put something int equal to 0, int b equal to same. I will divide by 0. I will try it here. Okay, let me get this code. This is what initially in the code, right? So here what I will do, I will do int z, sorry, actually I will do it here because we're going to see z equal to x y by x, right? That is what we did in the beginning of the class. This is what, right? So here, first I'll show you it is throwing the exception. And you know how to handle this runtime exception by if condition, right? Already I have explained it. See infinitive. It is coming infinitive though. Why it is coming infinitive here? It is to not show infinitive. Infinitive is in top part of the class, right? That code is already commented out. Okay, so this main class may not be, let me clean it and build it. You can go to project, you can do a clean here. You can clean this my project, select my project and clean it. Now we need to clean and it will do a build automatically. Since automatic build was enabled, let me run it again. Mhm. Okay. Said infinitive somewhere I'm defined or what? I have to comment that. It is not defined anywhere, right? So let me take this piece of whole sheet piece of code out of this. Okay. 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 Okay, so let's not talk about that. Then here we will do the same thing. Int, something wrong with my compiler. 0 b equal to 0, b equal to a, b equal to, let's say, 100, b equal to b divided by a, right? See, infinitive is not always the answer. Sometimes it might be divided by 0, sometimes might be undefined. That is the reason why Java has not used that. Right? That is the 0 why Java has not used that. See, I'm writing it inside the A class, so static block is there. That is the reason it is executing that. Fine. So let's now, I've commented out. See, you see inside static block. Let now run me it. Let me run. So you are seeing what is happening. Arithmetic expression divided by 0. Right? I will try this, this. I will do a catch here. Then what I will do, I will add this arithmetic exception here. Right? Add an arithmetic exception. I'll put a this is divided by, so divided by 0 it came, right? So you know to handle this kind of exception, try catch is not the right tool. But to show you something, I want to go through this approach. I want to show you some concept of Java. So I will delete this. So you see your try block is incomplete. There is no catch. It will show an error. Syntax error. Insert finally to complete the block statement or insert a catch block. Right? That is what it is saying. Inside finally block. Okay. So let me run it now. See inside finally block and your try is working. So sometimes people might ask you in the interview, is it possible to have a try block without catch block? And it's a very basic interview question. Yes, it is possible. You can, rather having a catch block, you can have a finally block to complete the try block. Right? So this is how it goes. This is how it works. And always runtime exceptions are not handled using catch. It can be handled using if else or instance of some other kind of you know other kind of code or functionality can be used to handle arithmetic exception rather using catch block for the runtime exception or arithmetic exception or other kind of exception. Any runtime exception, first you see how you can handle it without using any catch block, right? Any kind of runtime exception, first you try to see how you can handle it using without any catch block. If it is not possible to handle it without any catch block, then you can go and add a catch block to it. The best practice is not to use catch block for runtime exception. Next session, I will tell you how you can create your own exception class and how you can use it. And also, I will explain you about throws of exception. Today, we will end our session here. Thank you, everyone, for watching this video. If you have any concern, any query, kindly put your queries or any doubt on this on the comment section, or you can always mail me to my mail ID. I will definitely reply you back. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. See you on next session.